This podcast does not provide medical advice. Please listen to the complete disclosure at the end of the recording.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Everyone Dies, the podcast. I'm Marianne Malzo.
I'm Charlie Navarrete.
So grab yourself a cup of tea, a cup of whiskey, a cup of gin, a cup of whatever.
Yeah.
And thanks for spending the next hour with us. In the first half, they're spending an hour with me, maybe 10 minutes with you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Good. Just wanted to clarify.
In the first half, we have the recipe of the week and a joke. In the second half, I'm going to talk about Parkinson's disease. And in our third half, Charlie is going to scam us.
No, I'm not going to scan anybody. But did you say scan or scam?
Scam.
Oh, yes. So what's next?
Well, I think it's your line.
Yes, it is. I was seeing if you were paying attention. So, no idea what the hell I'm talking about. So, listen, we are often asked for keto-friendly recipes. Really? And Marianne and I have a culturally hard time imagining life without carbs. Well, yeah, we're on the same page about that. But this week, we thought, what the hey? Let's try. We have a keto shamrock shake, and that is avocado based. Yeah, okay, right here. If we were to do this, if we were to do this in March, we could just simply, point people to the direction of their nearest McDonald's for a, St. Patrick's Day shamrock shake.
But that's not keto.
But it is keto. Never mind. Okay, so we have a keto shamrock shake that is avocado based. If you're going to have avocados, you should really have like guacamole.
I'm thinking, right? I'll be
Yes.
darned if I'm going to be drinking avocado.
Yeah. So, so avocado based, 100% dairy free. Has spinach and peppermint in it. This baby has your name on it. Yes, it's got your name on it, not mine. So there we are. The Shamrock Shake, avocado base, 100% dairy free, has spinach and peppermint in it. Is there like a shot of whiskey or something on the side?
That's not keto.
But it's neato.
Neato keno.
Or just have it neat. No ice. Exactly. Yes. All right. Good.
So, Charles, I was on the Parkinson's disease Facebook page the other day. And they were talking about, somebody posted a question that said, what do you do when somebody makes a joke about Parkinson's? And
Laugh.
So they had, that's what you would do. And that's what some people do, actually. And then some people are like, oh, my God, I just, could never talk to that person again. And then other people were like, hey, sometimes it's all you got left. One guy says, when he goes to the bar, he'll offer to, hold people's drinks to stir them. Or,
right. Yes.
He said this. I didn't say this.
Right.
So, a lot of people said, hey, with this disease, if you can't find things to laugh at, then just forget it. So one guy posted a joke that I thought I did not find offensive. I thought was kind of funny. And
Can I say it?
Well, I just wanted to give a preamble that I don't want people to think that we're making fun of Parkinson's or of Alzheimer's, because it's not only it's about both. But it's sort of like reality is reality, and if nothing else, go have a shot of whiskey, which you'll understand once you hear the joke.
Yes.
So, Charles, you going to say it?
Yes.
Sure. Then we can blame you.
Sure. It won't be the first time. Old Man Murphy and Old Man Sean were contemplating life when Murphy asked, if you had to get one or the other, would you rather get Parkinson's or Alzheimer's? Sure, I'd rather have Parkinson's, replied Sean. 'Tis better to spill a couple of ounces of Jameson whiskey than forget where you've kept the bottle. I don't know. Maybe I should have done that without the accent. So
Well,
let me try without the accent.
all right.
So Old Man Murphy and Old Man Sean were contemplating life when Murphy asked, if you had to get one or the other, would you rather get Parkinson's or Alzheimer's? I'd rather get Parkinson's, said Sean. Well, yeah, because it's better to spill a couple of ounces of Jameson whiskey than to forget where you put the bottle.
Oh, well, so one is in the Irish accent, and then the other one is the interpretation of the
Yes,
Irish accent.
and I didn't deliver that punchline very strong, but you get the gist of it.
So we'll just keep both of those.
Yes, there we are. Okay, very good.
So there you go.
So for to hear this, international interlingual joke in two different ways, please go to everyonedies.org. That is our website. That's dies.org for a link to hear the joke again, and of course for the keto shake recipe and additional resources for this program. We appreciate your questions and anything else you want to mail, like checks, money orders, cash. You can email us at mail@everyonedies.org. Please join our Facebook group, Everyone Dies. This time you have to spell out the entire word. Everyone Dies. And please remember to rate and review this podcast.
And for those of you who are sending checks and money order and everything else, we are a nonprofit. Mm-hmm. And Charlie will not see a penny of the money.
No,
and it's tax deductible.
I was going to say tax deductible. There we are.
Tax deductible, man. Like you get to support our
deducts it from your taxes.
Our wayward ways and get a deduction from your taxes, and you keep Charlie off the street, which is like so important these days.
Well, we're in the middle of a pandemic. I am off the street, so I drink quietly at home by myself late at night.
Well, now you're getting pitiful. Now you're going to be sleepless in Seattle, except in New York. So, in our second half, we're going to talk about Parkinson's. Parkinson's disease.
That's easy for you to say.
Apparently not. So, in our second half, we're going to talk about Parkinson's disease. Now, Parkinson's is a neurological degenerative disorder that has no known cause, no way to prevent it, and no known cure. It's not considered to be a genetic disease because they haven't found a genetic marker, but that doesn't mean there isn't a genetic marker, just that they haven't found it yet. So there could be one, and there could be a genetic link. So when I say neurological degenerative disorder, or NDD, sometimes you'll hear people say that, what we're talking about is a movement disorder. It's a problem with how our bodies are able to move. There are 10 million people in the world with this diagnosis and about 1 million in the United States. So the symptoms and issues in Parkinson's are related to what is not working in the brain. So I'm sorry, I'm a teacher, you know that. Let me tell you what's going on so then you can understand what that part of the brain does, and then it kind of makes sense what symptoms that you're going to get from this disease. And then you can play a doctor on TV. So, Parkinson's disease is caused by loss of nerve cells in the substantia nigra of the brain. So, Charlie, do you know where the substantia nigra is in the brain?
Niagara, yeah. It's in upstate New York or lower part of Canada, and there are the falls there. So there's a lot of water. It's falling waters. That's why Niagara Falls.
So the substantia nigra is a crescent-shaped cell mass that sits right in the middle of the brain. So if you took the brain and you cut it in half, right in the middle of the brain is the substantia nigra. And this is the smallest part of the brain, and it regulates hearing, seeing, and motor function. The substantia nigra is a darkly pigmented area. So you've got sort of like like a cat with ears, and where the ears would connect to the body, there's this dark line, and that's the substantia nigra. And that's how it got its name, because it essentially means black substance in Latin. So we're in the middle of the brain, and on this area, this substantia nigra is like where the ears would connect to Mickey Mouse's head. So this area primarily is involved in controlling muscle movement. Now, there is a substance called dopamine that's made in this part of the brain. And the dopamine helps to make the body move the way it should. So about 60 to 80% of the dopamine producing cells, those that are in the substantia nigra, are lost before you even see the first signs of Parkinson's disease. Aren't our bodies incredible? That you could lose 60 to 80% of those cells before you start showing any kind of symptom. So what dopamine is a chemical messenger. It's the person that rides around on its bike and delivers messages from the substantia nigra to the other parts of the brain. So it says, like if you want to go and grab your martini, Charlie, this little messenger person goes running to your hand on its bike doesn't go to your hand, but it goes to the part that's going to control your hand in the brain. And it's going to say, he wants to drink his martini, pick up his hand. And so that part that regulates movement, and it's going to make sure that your muscle moves smoothly because it knows that you don't want to spill any of your martini. Yeah. So the dopamine is the messenger that tells the rest of your brain what it's going to do. So this slowly progressive disorder causes loss of muscle control, which leads to tremors, stiffness, and slow movement. When Parkinson's is there, the nerve cells in the substantia nigra break down. They're just not performing. And if you look at a normal substantia nigra and one with somebody with Parkinson's disease, you see that the normal one has a lot more nerve cells in that area, where in Parkinson's disease, they're kind of broken apart. So if the substantia nigra is not working, if those nerve cells aren't working, this is going to result in a sharp drop in dopamine. And I'm using thicker paper, so I had trouble turning my page. So this shortage of dopamine is responsible for causing loss of motor skills, moving, and maintaining balance. So does dopamine only have to do with movement? Well, no. It also monitors our reward and pleasure centers of the brain. So when you do something that brings you pleasure, the dopamine helps your brain remember it and makes you want more. So again, if you have less dopamine, you're not going to move as well, and you're not going to get that kind of dopamine bath when you do anything pleasurable.
So you had mentioned before that was it that people lose like 60 to 80% of the substantia nigra, right? Before they start to
show symptoms.
Actually, show symptoms. What am I trying to ask here? Not so much prepare, but if you go for let's say like a checkup, your annual checkup, is there any way a doctor can measure or find out if your level of substantia nigra is decreasing, way before you show any symptoms?
Well, so the thing, and we'll get to how we assess that. So first off is we're all different. So how much dopamine did you have in your body when you were 20? You don't know. I don't know how
Right.
much I had. So if I were to go to the doctor and they were to measure in some way measure dopamine levels, would they say, oh, you've got less or more? Well, who knows? You don't know. So in the
Okay.
first place, so Parkinson's
Yeah.
is diagnosed by the symptoms that the person is having, not by lab work or things like
Okay.
that. They use the lab work to rule out that there's not something else going on.
So if I were to be measured for, my level of substantia nigra, and I understand they won't know if this is same level as last year or 20 years ago, but can they measure it where the level is this year, and then next year of my checkup, measure it again and to see, oh, okay, it's level, you're losing
I would have
substantia
to look.
nigra. Is
I
that?
have. I
Yeah.
would have to look that up and see if there's an actual test for dopamine levels. I'm
Okay.
not aware of that, and I don't want to say no, but I will say I'm not aware of it, and I'll look it up,
Okay.
and we'll put it in the show notes for.
Yeah.
So that's a good question. So, Parkinson's disease symptoms may vary from person to person. Early signs may be mild and they can go unnoticed. Symptoms often begin on one side of the body and usually get worse on the same side, even after the symptoms begin to affect both sides. So, signs and symptoms of Parkinson's can include tremor. Tremor or shaking usually begins in the limb, often your hand or your fingers. So there's something that's classic Parkinson's movement, and it's what's called a pill rolling movement. So if you had your thumb and your index finger and you put them together, and then you pretended like you were rolling a pill or a really small pea or something like that, that
Yeah.
movement is called pill rolling. And that is a classic sign of Parkinson's disease. Also with the tremor is that your hand can tremor even when it's at rest. You can be sitting there doing absolutely nothing and your hand tremors. When I was growing up, the woman who lived next door to us, her husband and wife, she was a teacher at the local high school. She had Parkinson's disease. And I remember its progression from diagnosis to her death. And one of my jobs was to go over and I'd clean for them, or I would cook for them, or my mother would cook and I would take the food over there. So I was over there a lot. And I can remember one night in my early teens where she said, will you just sit and hold my hand so it doesn't move? Because
Wow.
she was so tired of her hand constantly shaking. And so
Right.
I just sat there with both hands over her hand, like forcing it. I mean, I wasn't hurting her as a kid, but forcing it not to move so she could just kind of rest. So that's the tremor. The second thing and these are not in any particular order, so I shouldn't say the second thing. So slowed movement. The fancy word for that is bradykinesia. Over time, Parkinson's disease slows movement, making simple tasks difficult and time-consuming. Your steps may become shorter when you walk. It might be difficult for you to get out of a chair. You may drag your feet when you try to walk. Another kind of classic movement in Parkinson's is that people will start walking normally and then their gait speeds up like really fast, like they're going to fall over. Rigid muscle stiffness can occur in any part of your body. The stiff muscles can be painful and limit your range of motion. You can see something like if you hold somebody's arm and just try to rotate it around, you can see something called cogwheel movement where it kind of stops and then you go to the next where it should be smooth. It jerks, and jerks as it goes around. You'll see impaired posture and balance. Your posture may become stooped. You may have balance problems as a result of Parkinson's disease. There's this loss of automatic movements. You may have a decreased ability to perform unconscious movement, including blinking, smiling, or swinging your arms when you walk. And actually, that's part of the assessment for the diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease is they watch you walk and see if you're swinging your arms or if your arms are stiff. Now, there's changes in speech. You might find that you're speaking softly, quickly, slur, or hesitate when talking. Your speech may become more of a monotone rather than having its usual inflections. And you know, Charlie, I had the surgery in January now. It's been so long. But I still have the hoarseness, so I'm in speech therapy.
Oh, right. Yeah.
As my vocal cords aren't closing after being intubated. And the speech therapist does a lot of work with people with Alzheimer's disease because they get this very soft voice. And she has a sign in her office that says, if you think you're talking too loud, you're talking at the right level.
Okay.
So that is can be an early sign of Parkinson's disease. Loss of smell is one of the symptoms. Trouble sleeping, thrashing around in bed, or acting out dreams when you're deeply asleep. And remember, this was one of the signs of Lewy body from last week's discussion. Now, people with Parkinson's disease can also have Lewy body and Lewy body type dementia. Constipation is a big one. I don't say it's a big one, but it's a real problem for people. Something called a masked face. People will tell you, why are you looking so serious or so depressed or so mad when you're not any of those things, but your face doesn't display any emotion. It's as though you're wearing a mask. And writing changes. It can become very hard to write, and your writing may appear small. And this is called micrographia. And it's just, you can't control it. It's teeny tiny writing that really is illegible. So some people will get Parkinson's disease dementia, as I was starting to say before, where there is this loss of what is called executive function. Do you know what executive function is, Charles?
So the president of the United States has like the nuclear briefcase. No, it's probably not it, is it? No. So actually, no, I don't.
Well, that was a long answer to say no. So these are tasks that our brain performs that we don't necessarily have to think about. So these are things like how to solve problems. Executive function includes tasks that help us learn new information, that help us to remember and retrieve the information that we've learned in the past. Then use this information to solve problems in everyday life. So in Parkinson's disease dementia, in particular, that executive function is lost. So if you said you're taking care of somebody, you said, I explained to you yesterday why it's important for you to close the freezer door. Well, they don't remember that. They don't really understand maybe even about closing the door or why it's important. And you might very well have that conversation for the rest of your life. Sort of like marriage. So, diagnosis. You really should go to a movement disorder specialist, which is a neurologist with special training. If you live in an area that doesn't have a movement disorder specialist, then go to a regular neurologist. I put, though, in our resource section how to find a movement disorder specialist. So what are they going to look for, Charlie? They're going to ask you to walk, looking to see if you drag your feet and if you move your arms when you walk. They're going to see if you start out walking slowly and then you do that speed up like I told you about. They'll ask you to write something. and look at your handwriting. And they do something that's called a pull test. And it's used to measure postural instability. So what they do is the therapist or the doctor will stand behind you and pull on your shoulders and see if you can keep yourself from falling over. Normally, if somebody pulls on you, you've got enough resistance and enough ways that you use your body that that's not a problem. But in Parkinson's disease, that's not the case. So we really don't know why this happens, and we know that there is no cure. So what could we do? The number one sort of treatment, if treatment for Parkinson's is exercise. Start early, do it often. Their recommendation is 2.5 hours per week. And their studies show that it might slow the progression of the disease. So 2.5 hours of exercise. And that can be walking to the mailbox, walking your dog, working in your garden safely. 2.5 hours. The second thing is something that's called a dopamine promoter. So a dopamine promoter is a medicine that's going to stimulate dopamine receptors that are in the brain. Now, the problem with not having a cure for Parkinson's is because the problem, the diseased area is in the brain. And when we were built, there's this, the brain is really important for everything. And so what there is something that's called a blood-brain barrier all around the outside of the brain. And it won't let toxins get through. It won't let stuff get in. It won't let dopamine itself in.
So you can't pass go. You won't collect $200. You won't get the stay out of jail for free card. Got it.
So you need a drug that's going to stimulate the other dopamine receptors that are in the brain so that then the brain can work better. And the classic drug that's used is called carbidopa and levodopa. The problem with these drugs is that there's something like a ceiling effect. You can only go up so high in the dosage in order for it to work. And so you want to use really small doses early in the beginning where, like maybe if you gave a bigger dose, you'd have like a way better response. But then that's going to only be for a short time because you're cutting down on the amount of time it's going to take you to get to the max dose. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Other drugs that are used are antidepressants that can help with Parkinson's and also with the depression that goes with it. Depression is very, very common in people with Alzheimer's or with Parkinson's disease.
With Parkinson's, yeah.
Also, drugs that help cognition can be used if there is the dementia aspect. So the drugs that we talked about with Alzheimer's disease can be used. And for the tremors, they use benzotropine, which another name for that is cogentin, that helps with the tremors. So, lifespan for somebody with Parkinson's disease. You can live 40 years with this disease. It's not life-limiting per se. But if you have Parkinson's disease dementia, it could contribute to increased mortality rates. So Parkinson's disease does not directly cause death. People with Parkinson's disease die from other causes. Two major causes of death for those with Parkinson's disease are falls and pneumonia. So with falls, they break a hip, let's say, and then you decide, are you going to do a hip replacement? Are they going to survive that surgery? Are they going to be able to do the rehab that's necessary? Many people within a year of breaking a hip will not survive. The other cause of death is pneumonia. So pneumonia is a common cause for people with Parkinson's because they're at risk for aspiration pneumonia. That's where something goes down the wrong track, gets into the lungs, it causes a pneumonia. So people with Parkinson's have trouble swallowing, they're at risk for aspirating food or drink. And they may not be able to cough up the foods. You know, like if your martini goes down the wrong pipe, you can cough and you can get that moving and out. But with people with Parkinson's disease, they don't have a good muscle strength for that cough reflex. It can remain in the lungs and cause the pneumonia. Also, people with Parkinson's disease tend to have like more mucus and that kind of stuff in their mouths, and so it can make effective treatment of pneumonia much more difficult for people with Parkinson's disease. You have any questions?
No, I'm just taking this all in. Yeah, it's a lot. I keep thinking of Michael J. Fox.
All right, so in our third half, we have some reports from Charlie.
Charlie who? Oh, me.
Navarrete.
That's my part.
Charlie Navarrete.
So, as reported in Newsweek magazine, the biggest fear among older adults is the loss of independence, and with it, the loss of dignity. This according to a survey from the Disabled Living Foundation. It is a fear greater than death. It's the loss of independence, and with it, the loss of dignity. So remember, everyone dies. Hey, just like the name of our show. Everyone dies. We all start dying from the moment we are born, which is a fun way to say we start aging at birth. And speaking of at birth, here's a shout out to 6-day-old Fumika in Tokyo, Japan. And just as we need help at birth, most likely we will need help again as we face the final curtain. It's nothing personal, just business. So what do? You take care of yourself to remain in control of your mind and body as long as possible. So this includes a healthy gut to protect you from bad bacteria and illness, which in turn strengthens your immune system. Plus, in one word, move. From the living room to the kitchen, get up and walk. Don't remain sedentary. At the very least, walk from room to room several times a day if you can't get out. Don't just sit there. You need to stimulate/exercise your body as well as your mind. Read something. Take a painting, a new language, or write your autobiography.
Or Marianne, do a podcast.
Have you started to work on your autobiography?
No, I decided to start a podcast.
Do the podcast instead? Okay.
That was there in kind of invisible ink, but I could see it there.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So, and the idea of this, like neither Marianne nor I were used to a podcast, but the point of it is that you do something new, something you're not accustomed to, something that stimulates your mind, your brain. You exercise your mind, and remember, it's not about
crazy. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud?
Yes. Okay. Yes, you did. But that's good because we make ourselves crazy with the podcast sometimes, but it stimulates our mind because it's problem solving. How are we going to take care of A, B, or C? It could be a podcast. It could just be, what is that thing called that I never pronounce and I never do well?
Sudoku.
Yeah, there it down, doesn't it? Just realize what I said. Yes, Sedaris, David Sedaris, the great essayist. That's not it. That's not it. It's Sedaris. Sudoku. Yes, as you said, Sudoku. Yeah, that's Sudoku thing.
Can you guys tell I can read his mind? It is such a short story.
I know. It's like I'm.
Ba-boom.
So that's it. Just find something. Even just simply reading. Read. Stimulate your mind. Maybe you're right-handed. For fun, start to write left-handed. Just a few symbols. Don't worry about that you need to write like Hemingway. Just keep yourself active. Okay. And so just remember what I was saying. It's not about finishing anything. It's really just about the journey. Blood needs to circulate. And there is a link to this article on our website. So please go there and you can read the whole piece. Now, regarding what Marianne mentioned earlier about scams, regarding our ongoing segment on scams, yours truly, that's me, Charlie, yours truly has recently received 2 messages from, quote, Amazon, advising me that my new Apple iPhone is on the way and that my checking account will be charged. No, I didn't place an order, and my checking account will not be charged. And neither will I contact them, as the email says. And don't get me started on all the misspellings. As we stated before, if you are ever unsure, contact a company directly. Don't respond to a message that you see, but contact the company directly. And if you feel maybe there's some truth to this, or you're worried that someone's trying to scam you, contact the company directly. Please do not click on any links.
Do not click on any links. No.
These bad boys, as soon as you do that, you have opened the floodgates.
They own you.
And with that happy thought in mind, thank you for listening. Yeah, thanks for listening. You're going to really want to come back next week. So, please stay tuned for future episodes of Everyone Dies. Our thanks to our executive producer, Major General Retired David Gillette, our producer, Sandy, Tom Hartman, our administrative advisor, and our friends, family, and you, our loyal whistlers. Loyal listeners who are supporting our work at Everyone Dies. This is Charlie Navarrete reminding you that the great Irish
Wizard
playwright Oscar Wilde did the great Wizard of Oz. It's another O, not Oz, but Oscar. Oscar Wilde. Supposedly his last words were, either that wallpaper goes or I go. And you are?
Marianne Matzo, and we look forward to talking with you soon. Remember, every day is a gift.
Keep the return receipt.
This podcast does not provide medical advice. All discussion on this podcast, such as treatments, dosages, outcomes, charts, patient profiles, advice, messages, and any other discussion are for informational purposes only and are not a substitute for professional medical advice or treatment. Always seek the advice of your primary care practitioner or other qualified health providers with any questions that you may have regarding your health. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard from this podcast. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or 911 immediately. Everyone Dies does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, practitioners, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned in this podcast. Reliance on any information provided in this podcast by persons appearing on this podcast at the invitation of Everyone Dies or by other members is solely at your own risk.